Hello and welcome to Scatterable TV, and today I'll introduce all of you to Volt, the brand new $300 gaming PC of the future. So why does the world need Volt? Well, Volt is meant to be an inexpensive, mass-produced, easy to build, and most importantly, an ultra 1080p gaming monster, all for 300 bucks. And I know that sounds too good to be true, but that's the challenge aspect of this video, and hopefully in the end of this video series, you'll see if my claims hold up or not. But more importantly, Volt is meant to be a direct contender with the PS4 and PS4 Pro, and you could say the Xbox One, for the same price, while hopefully offering more in terms of gaming performance and practicality. So for part 1 in this video series, we're going to be going over the PC build itself, the design choices behind the build, and the badass benchmarks that are going to follow each of those segments. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe button because I've put in so much hard work and time into this PC project, including some very late nights, so that'd be much appreciated. Alright, so let's get right into the computer. What did I stuff in Volt to make it compete with the PS4 and PS4 Pro for $300? Well, the first challenge was that I wanted to keep all the parts brand new because, as we all know, there's no used parts in a PS4, duh. And I'm not gonna cheat and use like a used pre-built or used graphics card to meet the price point of this PC because I wanted to keep it all brand new, just like the PS4. Secondly, I wanted to make sure that for a price point of $300 that I still choose quality parts because despite the price, I still wanted this to be considered a formidable gaming PC with high quality parts so anyone can build it and not run into any issues. And lastly was the price, because believe it or not, $300 is actually a pretty tight price point to meet for a gaming PC with an independent processor and an independent graphics card. So I had to be very careful in choosing what parts I chose to make this gaming PC possible. So what are the specifications for Volt? Well, the formula I used to batch up this $300 gaming PC are an Intel Pentium G4 560, an ASRock B250M Micro ATX motherboard, a Gigabyte GTX 1050 2GB OC edition graphics card, 4GB of Crucial DDR4 2133 MHz RAM, a Western Digital Blue 250GB SATA 6 gigabit hard drive, an EVGA 430W 80 plus efficiency rating power supply, and to top it off, a Zalman T2 Plus mid-tower, which brings the total price of Volt to 312 bucks. Now I know what you're thinking. In the video, you're seeing that I'm using currently a G4 600 rather than the G4 560 that I originally wanted for this build. Well, that's because the night I was ordering all these parts, I got everything except for the processor because the G4 560 literally ran out of stock on every single website I was trying to buy the processor from. And this includes Newegg, Amazon, eBay, you name it. It was gone everywhere. So I had to get its brother, which was the G4 600. But luckily, that doesn't change much when it comes to the benchmarking of this PC because the only difference between the G4 560 and G4 600 is a 0.1 gigahertz clock speed difference. So that's a good thing, at least to see out of this situation, but that won't skew benchmarking results that much, which is a good thing in my opinion. Secondly, I took a gamble getting a $20 case for this build, and I know you may be thinking that that goes against the quality standards that I wanted for Volt. However, that actually wasn't the case. The Zalman T2 actually served to be a pretty good case, which you'll see later on this video series. It got some pretty decent temperature and sound ratings for it in 100% load, and on top of that, when I was building it for the build tutorial that I'll do later on, it didn't really cause that much problems. Like, it still had all the things that I wanted to successfully complete the build, and I mean, for 20 bucks, it still holds up. It's got some good quality in it, it's still hard, and I mean, sure, it's not pretty by any means, but I think it did the job pretty well for 20 bucks. Next up, and I know you guys are already harping about it in the comment section down below, but you're wondering, why did you go with 4 GB of RAM, Scatterbolt? Why? Well, the thing is that to meet the price point of this PC, if I went with 8 GB of RAM, that would put the total price of Volt to 350 bucks, which is not a $300 gaming PC. So I had to stick with 4, but to be fair, I was actually kind of optimistic when it came to using 4 GB of RAM for Volt. And that's because when I saw a TechSpot article going over the differences between 4 GB, 8 GB, and 16 GB of RAM in applications and gaming, the performance difference between all three weren't that crazy, especially when you look at the 4 to 8 GB comparison. So I was pretty confident in going with that. And on top of that, for my Alpha $250 build that I did last year, that build also used 4 GB of RAM, and that thing crushed anything that was thrown at it. So I'm pretty confident in using 4 GB of RAM for Volt. So for the moment you've all been waiting for. Nah, I'm joking, I won't let you wait that long. So how well did Volt run the games that I tested on him? Well, for our testing variables to keep them as stable and consistent as possible, for the keyboard, I used a Cherry MX Silent mechanical keyboard, which despite its looks, actually has some pretty good gaming performance, which you will see in a future video. But aside from that, for the gaming mouse, I used a Corsair M65 Pro. And for the instances where I used a gaming controller, I used a regular Xbox 360 controller from Walmart, so nothing special there. Now for recording, I chose not to use any in-PC software to record any of the games like Shadowplay. And the reason being is that despite how efficient Shadowplay may be, it still has a minimal FPS impact in-game when recording, so I wanted to keep the results as accurate as possible, which is why I used an external Elgato HD60 to record all of my gaming results. And as for the games, first of all, I think we can all agree that the Scatterbolt game library needs to be updated for 2017, which you will see that in this video. But aside from that, I tried to hit a wide variety of games as well as like classics, popular games that you guys really want to see me run on this PC, so I tested a wide variety of games for Volt. But anyways, enough talk, let's get into the benchmark. So, does Volt hold up in modern 1080p gaming for 2017 for 300 bucks? Hell yeah, I think so. He showed some pretty awesome readings for running a lot of my games at high settings at some pretty stable high frame rates, especially for his price. However, there is one game I like to discuss, which is my CPU intensive game I decided to benchmark, which is Battlefield 1. Now, when it came to running the multiplayer side of Battlefield 1, I have to admit, Volt was showing some signs of struggle, which kind of made me a little bit worried, because when it came to the single player, Volt was handling that game perfectly fine, especially when it came to other online multiplayer games like Overwatch and Counter-Strike Global Offensive. There was no lag on those games, but there was lag on Battlefield 1, so I was wondering what could be the issue for running Battlefield 1 and Volt. So to test my theory, I tested out another CPU intensive game, that being PlanetSide 2, and unfortunately I got the same sort of reading. So the only issues I can boil it down to are simply the GeForce 600. It could be that that processor isn't really holding up with Battlefield. However, I've seen similar systems online on YouTube that have run the game perfectly fine, like a G4 560 and a GTX 1050 Ti running Battlefield 1 at some really good settings that are stable. So it could just be my GeForce 600 is poorly binned when it comes to multi-threaded gaming, but for the most part, I want to say that could just be an irregularity with Volt in this case. It may not happen for all of you guys, because Battlefield 1 on single player ran perfectly fine, but the multiplayer was pretty odd. So for the most part, out of the 11 games that we tested, Volt successfully ran 10 of them, and I'm pretty proud and pretty satisfied of Volt's performance for $300, and I feel pretty comfortable with releasing him to the public for public building. And I mean, when it came to running Prey, which is a 2017 title that's pretty graphically intensive, I mean, Volt was running that game at ultra settings at a really stable high frame rate, which I mean, kind of goes to show just how powerful a little beast like this guy can be. But anyways though, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I put in so much hard work, as well as my editor. He probably edited the crap out of this video. So we both would heavily appreciate if you guys would leave some comments down below on maybe future suggestions for videos, or maybe on Volt if we were to do a version 2 of him. But like always, make sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and all that. And this is the Skyrim channel, signing out.